Good morning, Back to Basics VIP members and Back to Basics Nation. I'm super excited this morning to be with Sheri Bennefeld from Way Beyond Ordinary. And first of all, I have to tell, before we get going, the name of your company, the name of your business is amazing. I hope I'm not getting a lot of feedback here. I'm going to turn my...
I don't hear any feedback.
Okay, awesome. I was hearing like echoing. But this Way Beyond Ordinary brand name that you came up with, at first I thought, oh geez, I don't know how that ties into your business, but it's all about you. You are so way beyond ordinary. So when you guys get to know Sheri, you're gonna love her as much as I do. So Sheri Bennefeld is, again, the owner, operator, businesswoman, guru, entrepreneur. She is a master class in herself of helping people launch these online and manage these online events. So there were a number of you that I've spoken to in the last few weeks who are thinking about launching your own online training courses and events and trying to figure out, first of all, where do I start? How do I get through that process? And then how do I manage it when we get there? The technology just freaks people out sometimes. So Miss Sheri is a whiz at this, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about this today, and I'm super excited about it. Sheri, do you want to let them know how you got started in all this?
Well, thanks, Tanya.
Yeah.
Okay, so here, before we start, because I just have to tell you a funny story about, how the universe has greater plans for us. When I started my business almost 12 years ago, I wanted the name to be Beyond Ordinary. At the time, I was writing a blog called Beyond the Beach, and it was all about travel. And so I wanted it to be Beyond Ordinary, and that URL was not available. So I was working with this PR company that was doing the branding and stuff for me.
Yeah.
And one of the designers suggested Way Beyond Ordinary, and I was like, I don't know. And so I went with it anyway, and I'm so glad I did.
I'm so glad you did.
And no matter what I do with my business, whatever iteration it goes through, and if you're an entrepreneur, you understand iterations of business, it's always appropriate.
Yeah.
And it really is, like you said, it's about me. And I went through a process many years ago with a corporation that I worked with on identifying your personal brand statement. And we went through this full day workshop, and then we landed on this, and mine was never satisfied with ordinary. So
I love it.
I mean, full circle.
It is full circle. And you know what? I'm going to have you on a follow-up, probably like a little group convo of people that go through this brand cycle, because it is an interesting story that you have. Mine is kind of convoluted and like this, and I just love hearing, right? I love hearing, like you said, those iterations and that migration. But
oh yeah, it's a long and winding road. Yeah. So that story really, I began my career in training and development back in the early 90s. I think 1992. So, that just kind of dates me a bit. But I've gone through a lot of different types of training and development iterations over time, and this was back, I was doing training and development in corporations before there was an internet. So we didn't have online options. And I'll tell you, when it became, everyone started talking about e-learning and the opportunity to train online, I was not on board. And I was not on board because I know the value of one-on-one connection and the live classroom environment. So it took me a long time to buy into this, and I started doing webinars and stuff back in, as soon as that technology became available. I was doing webinars and some online teaching, because the corporation that I worked for had members and clients all over the country, all over the world, really. So I had to get on board. And I also had to figure out a way to make those online interactions as valuable as the live classroom.
Yeah.
And now with things like Zoom, holy cow, you know, you can do it all there. There's
Right.
very little that you can't replicate in some type of a virtual classroom type setting.
Right.
So it's pretty cool.
And we've seen a huge boom of this during COVID, when people were forced out of that comfort zone. And now even going back, you and I talked about this a little bit last week. Now that people are some are starting to migrate back to that office space, or companies are kind of doing this hybrid where some are still virtual workforce and some are office workforce. They're still utilizing this technology to conduct these meetings, these trainings, these webinars. And so large corporations having all of this technology available to them is a little more palatable in that environment, right? But it's still, geez, as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, I still need to reach maybe those same people or these other individuals, small businesses and entrepreneurs. And I still don't have that physical workspace to go to do this, or I don't have the capacity to do this, but I have a message to get out. I have a value to get out. I don't know where to start. That's where you can kind of help them plot that process, correct?
Right. And that's what we do, like in my workshops. And I have a couple of different packages, ways that I work with people, but we always start with your objective. Why are you doing this thing in the first place?
Yeah.
Who do you want to reach? What do they want? What's their objectives for it? And getting really, just really clear about that stuff helps us design the experience that you want your attendees to have.
Right.
What you want, you know, I always talk about what's the story you want them to tell. When we walk away from your course or retreat or your program, what do you want us to tell our friends and family about the experience that we had? And I want people to really think about that, because when you start with that end in mind, it kind of builds the theme all the way through of how you're going to design the content. You know,
Yeah.
I see people making this mistake all the time of trying to put everything they know into their program. You know, they've got a, I don't know, it might be a 2-hour program or it might be a 6-part program, but they want to put everything in there. And
they want to put the whole novel.
Right. And your audience is not going to remember it anyway. There's a model that I teach on the learning pyramid, and this comes from, I'm going to forget the source of it right now, but there's a pyramid of activity. And what this says really is the amount of information or the percentage of retention just 24 hours after a learning experience. And at the very top of that pyramid, 5% is lecture. So meaning if you just talk to somebody and you lecture for any amount of time, 24 hours later, they're going to remember 5% of that.
Okay, so let's talk about that for just a second. I want to dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
So are we talking like, when I hear lecture, I'm thinking classroom directed instruction, where I'm talking at somebody rather than
Right.
a conversational piece of it. You're
Yep.
saying that teachable moment, unless they've got some other takeaway or supplement or follow-up system in place, just that piece of information.
Yeah, if you are
is
just going to
5%.
lecture. Yeah,
Okay.
and it might even be, you know, I know people hate to hear this, but video is lecture.
Yeah.
It's one-way communication.
Yeah.
So if you can stack other other modes of communication and other modes of training along with that, then it goes up.
Okay.
So you might lecture for 10 minutes on a specific topic to teach it. And then the next part of that is to give them opportunity to process the information. And so that requires engaging activity where they can actually play with the content, experience it, share it back with others, discuss it, something that will help process
Retention. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about like periodic testing? I've been on some online classes where they get through segments of the content. They almost break it down into chapter form, and then they have like little mini quizzes throughout. Do you see the effectiveness of that?
I don't know that the quiz itself helps. It is a processing tool. It might increase retention on those specific things slightly, but it's still not getting towards the bottom of the pyramid. And the bottom of the pyramid is where, I mean, the very most effective way for somebody to learn is to teach others.
So take what I've taught you and go out and teach it.
Right. And sometimes that can be done. I mean, it's one of my favorite things to do in a learning session, in a workshop or something, is to have a piece of content that people learn or they have access to, and then they teach others that right there in the session. So you as the facilitator, you don't have to do all of the teaching. You might deliver, for instance, you might provide them with a resource, a worksheet or a block of content that they read, process, and then they figure out a creative way to teach it to others in a small group. So then by teaching it, their retention of that information goes up dramatically.
Do you also find that when you provide those extra supplements, so I think where people get caught up when they think of online events and online training is that it has to all be digitized in the moment. And they have a hard time breaking out, number one, here's what we need to talk about. Here's what the message we need to get across. Now, how do we apply this here to digital? And then, like you said, take it a step further and make it something that they can retain. So do you see the benefit in creating these supplemental pieces? Where I've been through some of these workshops on webinar type formats where they release printable documents throughout that people can print off, and then they start actually physically writing it. I don't know about you, but I retain when I write.
Absolutely. I mean, that is it's critical. I mean, when I have a workshop actually tomorrow, and almost the entire workshop includes worksheets that you are completing. You're doing the work. I'm giving you information. I'm giving you the ideas and the concepts and the process, and you're doing the work. So when you walk away, you have this worksheet filled out with the answers to the questions that will lead you forward in the design.
Yeah. And I think one of our viewers today has got a background in psychology. I'm sure that they would have more information about this, but from what I've read is that when you can combine sight, sound, and tactile stuff like writing, the human brain is more apt to absorb that information for longer, or create a synapse where they can recall it more easily.
Yeah. You know, it's so true. A picture's worth 1,000 words. Yeah. And if you draw the picture yourself, even if you're a crappy drawer, then you're really going to remember it.
Yeah, nobody wants to see my drawings.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. They're for you. Right. And even if it is, a circle with a heart in the middle, it means something to you, and it will trigger that memory of whatever the content was that you associated with it. So word association along with those pictures dramatically increases your retention of that material.
Amen. All right. So guys, you're getting just a little piece of the type of coaching that Sheri can share with you. Now, if you've been listening, if you've been retaining,
I know
percent of what we're saying to you is going to stick, number one. And number two, it doesn't have to all be digitized, right? You don't necessarily want it to be all digitized.
Yeah, I am, I still am of that old school of, classroom interaction. I've just figured out great ways to do it virtually. But I
love that.
Live virtual is absolutely my preferred way of training versus like an evergreen type program.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so I'm going to back up for just a second because you've given some great tips on things for people to think about in that development process. But let's take them through the process of working with you. I call you, ring, 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 Sheri. I'm thinking about launching this program about the basics of SEO, let's say. And I want to get just the basic information out there because I feel that people hear SEO and they dive to the top of that pile. They try to go into advertising and we're missing the foundations of what that is, the fundamentals. So I want to put a program together. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to get the information in an order that would make sense and then take it online and then follow-up programs. How can you help me?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. I like to work with people, in a really focused manner. So I have packages that we start out with, and that is really designed for exactly what you want to accomplish. So if you called me up and you wanted that, I might recommend my Designing for Virtual Consultation, which is a package that just gets us started. It includes a 90-minute consultation where you bring to me your content and, here's all the stuff that I have that I want them to know. And then I walk through with you how you can design that in a participant-centered, experiential way that's going to guarantee a higher level of engagement and retention. I provide you with some tools. We go through some worksheets, things that will help you in that design process. And then you're kind of ready to do it yourself. And then, for some people, they really want more hands-on, somebody by their side to help them do it. So I have a package that is just a Design for Virtual package, and we there I actually help you and we walk through and I'll help you create the activities, teach you like how to facilitate a specific exercise. Like I might have you suggest a scavenger hunt to as one of the learning activities for a piece of content. I'll walk with you through how to facilitate that and provide you with some additional tools as well. And then,
say launch day.
Yeah, launch day. So there's the scary part, right? So that's another part of what I do is virtual event production, because I swear, don't try to do this yourself.
No.
When you think about it, there is so much going on if you're doing it right. You're letting people in, first of all. So you've got, the waiting room that you're managing, and you're greeting people and you're sending out handouts through chat. You're managing the chat, you're answering questions, you're facilitating. I want you to focus 100% of your attention on your participants and delivering the content. On the back end, I'm behind the scenes managing all that other stuff.
And she does a fantastic job. I've been on a few events where they pulled Sheri in to manage, because there's so much stuff going on. You don't want to get distracted by somebody going, I just got logged off, I can't get on, I don't know I can't figure out chat. You don't want to be dealing with all that techie stuff here when you're supposed to be focused.
I was just on an event last week with about 200 and some people, and where I was the producer, and I'll never do that again without an additional producer. I mean, even when you have that
It's
many
a
people,
lot.
you need more than one of you.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I always give my cell phone number for attendees to text me if they have technical problems. And so I'm trying to manage the event and my phone is blowing up and it's like, I mean,
Yeah.
you have to have help there.
No, okay, so here's your third takeaway if you've been listening. Even the professionals can get tripped up. So more hands on deck is great, right?
Always.
And if somebody with this much talent and expertise like Sheri has tiny little hiccups, come on, guys, you can't be afraid to step into the water.
Well,
it's going to happen.
Plus, I'll tell you what, it has happened more than a couple of times that I've been producing an event and the host loses connection. So I always, if you have slide decks or handouts, whatever, I always have a copy of that. I have it up on my second monitor. It's ready to go. So in these cases, then like in one, for instance, she lost her internet. She dialed in on the phone. I had her slideshow up and she was ready to continue.
You know what? I wish I would have known you like 10, 15 years ago when some of this stuff was starting up, because I was in a situation where I had to teach a bunch of real estate associations across the US how to use a specific software for one of our clients. And I had to create all of these videos and webinars. And more than once on some of these remote locations where we were at, that's exactly what happened. I lost internet connection, and this company that had contracted me did not have backup in place. Everybody came off, had to log back in. It was a very stressful experience.
Yes.
So,
and not a great experience for your attendees, you know, and that unfortunately is, people are very forgiving, but it still is a reflection of you.
Yeah. And it can happen. So having more hands on deck, great. And having somebody like Sheri walk you through that is great. Before we log off, let's see, what time is it? Ooh, we're coming up on our half hour. Sheri, you've been awesome. I want to talk, you've got a workshop coming up tomorrow. I just want you to talk to everybody about that really quick.
Yeah, it's called Spark Shop, Light Up Your Live Virtual Events. And this is a 90-minute workshop where we just really get started on identifying first clarity of what this event is. What are your objectives, your attendee objectives? I have some really cool worksheets and tools that you can start mapping it out. I will provide you with some great resources of fun interactive activities that you can use. I also share with you my design process, which is I'll just give you the quick rundown on it. It's called CPR, and it's about delivering content, processing, and recalling. So the three different elements to assuring that you've got great retention, because, you know, we all love to do these little, what I call happy sheets at the end of an event, the evaluation. You know, you put on your event and then you ask people how it was. And if they give you 5, you're like, oh, yay, I was so awesome. They like me. But do they remember anything tomorrow or a week later? My goal is that a year later, people will remember your event and they'll remember content that you taught them. So this is tomorrow. Begins at 10 a.m. Central, 90 minutes again. And
this is a paid event, guys, but it is so worth it. So I would really love you to go check it out. There's a couple places where you can find it. So Sheri's going to post this up in our VIP page here a little bit later. But if you go out to her website at waybeyondordinary.com, it's .com, right? Yep. You can find information on the page there too. I believe when I looked last week, it was
it's right in the top nav. You'll see the page for Spark Shop.
Beautiful.
And then I also, just because you know, I love to share. And if you want to follow me, that's a great place to do it. Just, check out my website. But I also have, I'm going to just put this up here for 1 second.
Beautiful.
You can scan this.
Take a
picture.
snapshot.
Boom.
Boom.
So this is going to get you my design menu. So what this is there's 19 different engagement activities
Wow.
that you can use when you're creating your course or program or workshop, whatever. And they're all interchangeable. I give you different ways that you can use them, different scenarios that you might use them in.
Wow.
And they're really cool. So
That's very generous of you.
yeah, it's fun. Plus, that's a great way to stay in touch with me and see what else is coming up too.
That's awesome, Sheri. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing. Okay, so just really quick, one more time. Sheri Bennefeld, way beyond ordinary. She's amazing. Check out her upcoming class tomorrow if you can make it. If not, please reach out to her at waybeyondordinary.com. We'll also post her direct contact information in the post on this recording later. One other thing I want you to think about, guys, when you're thinking about online events or you're putting together training programs, there is a specific process that we've talked about today. First, it's the content, right? And then it's trying to map out how are we going to deliver that content? And then how are we going to help them retain that content after? It doesn't matter if you're doing a live event, like a presentation type event, or you're trying to put together an ongoing coaching class online. She can help you map that content. She can help you deliver that content. So if you have any questions on whether or not she's the person that can help you, just reach out. She'll tell you.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yeah, I will tell you if it's not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Believe me.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. And I'm going to be, I'm in the group. So feel free to ask questions on this recording thread. I'll be watching it. I'll keep an eye out, or just hit me up directly. I'm Sheri at waybeyondordinary.com is my email, or, right here in Facebook is great too.
Beautiful. And we're actually going to be asking Sheri, putting her on the spot, to be one of our experts in this little VIP group. So whenever you have a event type of question or a training type of question, she'll be flagged. You'll know where to find her.
I'm happy to. I can geek out on training and events
You're
all
my
day
favorite
long.
Us geeks, we got to stick together, right?
I know. It's
High five. Oh. All right, my dear. Thank you for being with us for this short half hour. I can't wait to see you again. I can't wait to check out your class.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, and I love the group. It's I'm looking forward to engaging more.
Small but mighty, right?
That's what we like. It doesn't matter how many you have. It's just having the right people.